Welcome, everyone. We will get started shortly, but I'd like to give people a few more moments to get their audio preferences settled before we begin. All right, hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. Before I hand it off to my presenters, I just want to cover some technical details in case you haven't joined Acro webinars in the past. We use Zoom webinar, which is similar to Zoom meeting, except that your cameras and mics are going to be disabled by default. And to interact with each other or other presenters, you have two main options. For discussions and general comments, you can use the chat button. This defaults to hosts and panelists, meaning only they will see your message. If you want everyone to see it, make sure to select everyone from the drop-down menu. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A button. You can ask questions anonymously, and you can view and comment on existing questions. And you can ask questions at any time. And now, with further ado, I will hand it off to Christina.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's really great to see some familiar faces and names in the participants list. It's awesome also to see that so late into December, I mean, we're right in the middle of the holidays, that so many people are joining us. So thank you guys so much for being here. Next slide, please. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So today I'm joined by my colleagues, Drew and Dave. Julie is actually traveling home from a conference, and so I'm filling in. And I actually just wanted to say really quickly before we really jump into it that this will be my last EDGE webinar, and it has been such an honor to be able to work and serve your different institutions and communities. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of that. But your hosts today are myself, Drew, and Dave. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Jasmine, who's going to talk about the IESC.
Thank you, Christina. And it's been a delight having you with us, helping us with our EDGE updates all these months that you've been with us. And you will be sorely missed. But thank you again for your contributions. Hello, everybody. I'm Jasmine Saidi-Keener. Here in Los Angeles, California, where it's a balmy 59 degrees. And just wanted to welcome you all to our EDGE webinar today. I currently serve as chair for the International Education Standards Council. This is the body that oversees the country profiles and the credential advice that you find in EDGE. Joining me today are a few members who serve with me on the council. We have Emily Tse, who's with the International Education Research Foundation, another Angelino here in California. And we have our ACRO representatives as well, David Mihalia and Drew Carlisle. Just a quick summary of what IESC does. You will also find this information shaped very nicely on the EDGE website on ACRO. The council is composed of representatives from public and private universities, as well as credential evaluation agencies. We have 7 voting members. The members are all volunteers. We bring our years of experience in credential evaluation and international admissions, and together we help review and gather information and do necessary research over and beyond what has been contributed already in EDGE to make sure that the content remains up to date. And with your help, the help of our EDGE users, we receive information or questions that help us keep the information as up to date as possible. So we continue to encourage you to share your sample credentials with us, those that you find that are not currently addressed in a country profile. And we always say, please make sure you redact the sensitive information and then share those documents with us. That way, that will help us do the necessary research and find out more about the credential, the criteria to receive that document, that qualification, and what it provides access to in the country of study. So then we can shape a credential advice. So that's kind of the summary of what the IESC does, always available to answer any questions you may have. And now I will pass this on to Drew.
Hey, thanks,
Thank you.
Jasmine. I don't know if any of you noticed just a little while ago, I had a different piece of headgear on. I celebrate Christmas Kwanzaa and I celebrate a new year that's coming up. And so I want to wish all of you a merry and happy new year. Whatever you celebrate, I thank you for being here today. What we're going to talk about is we're going to go down to Madagascar and do something that the IESC addressed. It's already posted within EDGE, but we just wanted to talk to you just a little bit about some of the philosophy behind the Diplôme Supérieur d'Études en Gestion and the Diplôme Universitaire de Fin de Premier Cycle d'Études en Gestion. I apologize for anyone that actually speaks French, but we'll be going through that. As Jasmine mentioned, we love it when you send in credentials, and when you send in questions and things that we need to update, we love it when you bookmark that so that you get notified when the IESC has made that update within EDGE. We'll go through over that one more time for you, but one of the things that we really wanted to go through that we've gotten a couple of questions on is how to edit your Acro subscription roster. For those of you that are those EDGE managers, you have the ability to change who has access at your institution or organization without necessarily reaching out to us. That's something that you would be able to do, and you wouldn't have to wait for us. And we'll show you how to set that up today. And we'll give you a little bit of information about where to find a bunch of archived information from Acro that would be useful for you. We'll be talking about some of the resources that we have available, free resources for dealing with credentials that are coming from Ukrainian students. We want to highlight that we do have coming up next year in 2023, we've got a lot of in-person events. We've got the Acro International Meeting out in Aurora, Colorado. We've got in-person learning opportunities at the International Institute in Washington, D.C. in early February. We've got a bunch of stuff. Plus, we're doing a little bit of the TICEP. There's a tie-in with TICEP and EDGE. Well, we have a lot of folks that are actually going to be, that actually have already been or are being inducted right now, it's just not up on the website yet, into the Hall of Acclaim from TICEP. There's a lot of overlap, like I was saying, between the IESC and between that. And so we're excited to show you some of that. But let's get into, I guess, a poll would be nice. I wonder who's going to be with us today. It's the last session of the year. Some people might have the ability to squeeze a couple more webinars in, but Belma, do you have a poll about who is here with us? Are you an EDGE subscriber already? If you're not, don't forget there's a free trial. Check out the About EDGE page. We give all the information on how to sign up there. We want to know if this is your first user group. If it is, welcome. Don't forget to sign up for the International Activities Group. That's a free resource where you can reach out to all of your colleagues and pose questions about how they address certain topics within their offices. What segment are you representing? Are you with an institution? Are you with an evaluation agency? Are you with the government, either in this country or some ministry abroad? Are you with a law firm or immigration agency or attorney? I'm really curious who all's here. Belma, any more time on that poll, or are we good to see who's shown up today?
All right, let's.
Nice. A whopping 94% of folks today are already EDGE subscribers. I hope that it is a useful tool for you, and we are continuing to work to make it better. Just wait until you hear all of the research that we do when we go into making any of this credential advice for you. For those of you that are not yet subscribers, thank you for joining. I'm not sure how you found us, but I'm glad you did. ACRO has lots of resources that would be able to help you when you're developing those institutional policies, when you're trying to better understand any applicant that's coming to you, what they're bringing in terms of their credentials. We just want to ensure there's appropriate recognition for the work that they've invested in themselves. So we welcome you, and hope you're going to wind up being a subscriber with us in a while. Many of you have never been to a user group. Like I'm pretty excited to see that we have a lot of you folks that are here, and we've got a good representation from government with 3% today. Evaluation services are representing a little more than 10%. 13 is what I see, and 85. A large majority comes from institutions. This does not surprise me. The majority of our subscribers do come from institutions. This kind of breaks out a lot as we see subscribers in general. But let's not delay any further. I want to hear about Madagascar. Emily, will you take us down?
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me because I did experience some technical difficulties earlier. So hopefully that is working.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. So on to Madagascar. Yes, we get queries far and wide. We recently, well, a few months ago, received a query about the DUF. Should we go on to the next slide? I'm not seeing it on my monitor here. Yes, there we go. Just so that y'all can see these acronyms and the full names of the credentials. So we had a query about the DUFPCEG as well as the DSEG. Thanks to Drew for doing the full French name so that I don't have to, because I would just slaughter it. It'd be torturous for you all. But basically refers to the diploma of the end of the first cycle of studies in management and the higher diploma in management studies. As you can see, these names are long. That's why we have a lot of acronyms in our field, and especially when referring to credentials in the French pattern educational systems. Anyhow, we did not have these credentials previously. They are now they're updated in the Madagascar Edge profile, and they are essentially a 2+1 structure. What do I mean by that? On to the next slide, please. So with the older French pattern system, what happens is in Madagascar, students complete the 12-year elementary and secondary system leading to the BAC or baccalaureate. If they go on to higher education, typically they will do a 2-year credential, either leading to the DUG, DUEL, DUES, or DUET, depending on what their area of concentration is. Most commonly, you'll find the DUG, which is the Diploma of General University Studies, but there are also the more concentrated 2-year qualification in literature, science, and technology, respectively. So we also have one that focuses on business and management studies. That is the DUFPCEG that we received the query on. That's also a 2-year qualification, and that slots right into this tier of qualifications. And so that's essentially 2 years of undergraduate study, and that's what the placement recommendation or credential advice would be, if you will. For those students who want to move on, they usually do an additional year of study leading to the licence, or again, if they are focusing specifically on business and management studies, then that leads to the DSEG. And then they can also move on further from there with an additional study in the 1-year maîtrise. It was difficult to find information on this because they are becoming less and less common. Since 2008, Madagascar, being a French pattern system, has been slowly transitioning and moving into the LMD system. So that's the Bologna pattern licence, 3-year licence, master, 2-year master, and then the doctoral. So you'll be seeing these types of credentials less and less, but this is the context and the structure within which you would find, once again, the DUFPCEG and the DSEG. So that's Madagascar. Thank you all.
Hey, thanks, Emily. So when we get any new requests that come in, there are lots of them that come in to the IESC and to Edge. We really appreciate everything that y'all write in. From every page within Edge, there's actually a contact us form that you can click. There's a button that you can click onto, and it'll bring up a form, and it asks for all the information for what you want to submit over to us. And when you submit something over to us, it's going to tell us the page that you came from. So if you were on a credential and you have a question about the advice, and you have an example of something that we need to reference so that maybe there will be a new grading scale update that comes out, you can include all of that information, and we'll see where it came from when it comes into us. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to bookmark that country as soon as you submit that request in, because then as soon as the IESC is able to go in there and we'll send out that alert, you'll get notified when we make that change. If you're not able to attend the Edge webinar where we're going to be talking about that edit, if it's something that didn't make it onto the agenda to be discussed specifically today, but was something that was completed within Edge, that's something that you will get notified on. So if you look at the slide, you'll see from the top right-hand corner of every credential page is how I would say it. The top right-hand corner of every key resources page, the top right-hand corner of every page within an Acro profile is going to give you the ability to bookmark, and that is going to be associated with that country. What we're going to do is we're going to send you updates about the country. It's not going to be just as granular as we just want to know when there are updates about the resources. You tell us you want to hear about Lesotho. Apologies again for my pronunciation. That's what you're going to want to bookmark, and we're going to tell you whenever there's that kind of update. But many of you are already using that, and for those of you that are not, it's a really nice feature. When you know a system, when you know it really well, you know it so well, you don't even need to check Edge anymore. Those are actually good examples of systems and countries that you may want to bookmark in case we come up with new advice that would be useful to you, that would be able to supplement what you already know. You don't want to make any mistakes because there's new information and you just weren't aware that that new information had come out. So use your bookmarks. And on to the next slide, I can tell you about some more stuff that you can do within Acro Edge. Specifically, how to manage your Acro Edge roster. What we're going to do, there was a question that came into the chat just a little while ago. Is this webinar going to be recorded? This, along with all of the other Edge user groups and Acro webinars, are recorded and available through our full webinar archive. There is the link down in the chat. Those, you just need to sign up. You'll give your registration information, and you'll be able to see those recordings once you sign in to do that. This is going to be available so that anyone that needs to reference this can come back later, and we'll give you the timestamp so you don't have to hear my French pronunciation, so you don't have to hear all of this intro. You'll get right to the heart of it. So I'm going to tell you today, what is an Edge manager? An Edge manager is the person, there's one of them, that has access to everything in the database, just like every other subscriber, but they are the person that receives the annual invoice. They are the person that receives the abilities to make these changes themselves. Their access to the information is the same. So if you have someone in your office that makes decisions about what to purchase, and you have someone in your office that actually holds on to the credit card, and both of those people can use Edge, I might suggest it's the person that actually holds on to the credit card. It's actually the person that makes those day-to-day changes that would be your best Edge manager. What you're going to want to do is, once you've designated the Edge manager, that's part of when you're setting up your subscription. That person is going to have all of these privileges moving forward. If you ever need to change it, bullet point number 5 down there, if you ever need to change who the Edge manager is, that's actually something that you do need to reach out to us for. That is something that if you tried to change the Edge manager from you to somebody else, you would actually be removing your ability to make that change, and then you wouldn't be able to apply it to someone else, and you would just lose access for a little bit. Strongly encourage you, reach out to me at edge@acro.org, or use the contact us form on every page within Edge, and you can just let me know who we need to change it to, and we can take care of that for you. But many of you are curious about how to actually do this. So Belma, could I share my screen? I'm going to steal this away from you here. And I am going to show you what we actually have within Edge so that you guys can see all of this. Let's see. Now, can you see? Where's my screen? I'm sorry, guys. Technical issues. You know how that goes. My apologies. All right. You should be able to see a full screen of the full webinar archive. This is the page that I was just referencing a second ago, but to manage your Edge roster, you're actually going to go in to Edge, to your homepage, and from the upper right-hand corner of all Acro pages, Edge included, you're going to click Login, and it'll take you to the screen where you'll need to put in your username and your password. This is the same for all Acro web-based services. If you have taken a course with us, if you have done any other webinars, if you are an Acro member, but now you've decided to pick up an Edge subscription, it's going to be the same username and password. This is your username, that's your email address, and your password, I'm never going to be able to see it, but if you need a password reset, you would be able to trigger one for yourself right here. Just click the forgot your password and it'll ask for your username, which again is your email address, and you'll be able to go through. Now, to show you the process, I want you to imagine that I have typed in the email address and password of Kaylani Lana. She is the Edge manager over at Davidson College. And as soon as Kaylani typed in this information and put it in, this is the screen that pops up. And as the Edge manager, over here, you'll see a little bit of information, and it's in subscriptions. She'll be able to go in and see all of the subscriptions that she's managing. She's just managing one Edge subscription, shows you when it begins, shows you when it ends. And if you were also managing a Acro membership, you would see that as well. And you just need to pick the subscription that you're going to be managing. Once you get into manage this particular subscription, you want to look at the members. This is where you change who's going to have access to Edge. Now, everyone that is listed here as a member, all of these folks are going to be listed forever. It doesn't matter if they're no longer at Davidson. This is just who has access to this particular subscription. You can see this assigned category here. These are the people that have been assigned Edge access. Marlene, Megan, Kaylani, and Angie all have access right now, but Paula and Kaylee don't. You can sort to see the people that don't. You can sort to see the people that do. Be sure that you can edit over here, but if you edit that Edge manager, remember that's going to take away your privileges. So don't do that. You know, on second thought, maybe just don't touch these over here at all. Just what you'd be able to do if you needed to assign access to a new person. Well, Paula, you just click her on right there, and now Paula would have access to Edge. She would use the same login codes that she did historically, but that's as simple as it is right there. You search for the person's name. You can type it in and you can search for their name before you just create a new record over here. Because if you create a new record, it's going to be associated with the email address, and then you've created a duplicate record. And so my best suggestion is search for the person before you create a new record. And once you search for them, all you got to do is click assigned, and that'll give them the access. That's your basic walkthrough on how to go through and to assign access to new individuals. If Kaylani wanted to create a new member, it's as simple as clicking right here, and we can get the person started with a first name, a last name, and their email address. If you don't put the email address in there, it is not going to generate those login codes. So even though it's not required, it is required. All right, and then Belma, if you could steal it back from me, and we can head on to the next slide. That was my basic run through of that for you. So on the next slide, we will get into, this is the information that I was talking about earlier, the website, where to find all of this. That's the webinar archive right there. But what we'll do is we'll go back in and we can include information on the specific timestamp for this, because we know some people are going to want to see that specifically. On to the next, please. So we are going to be talking about quite a few different resources that we have available. I mentioned Ukraine a while ago. It's a free resource that we have available that you don't even have to be an Edge subscriber for those of you that have joined today that are not yet Edge subscribers. If you have applicants that are coming in from Ukraine that you want to help them understand what the credentials are, we have advice for that and what you can do. And we've opened this up. There's actually a Connect article that we had a couple of months back that gave a lot of different resources that are available out there for displaced persons in general, but we were talking specifically about Ukraine there. We've done webinars about some education, some systems in crisis, like Venezuela, for example. There's so much stuff on the webinars. I want you to get over there and look at all that, but let me focus on Ukraine for a second. We've got reviews to webinar. We've got links to webinars on this Ukraine Resources Connect link that I was talking about, but the profile is available for you there. What else do we have today, Belma? So I saw Ina in the chat was talking about being excited about 2023. I hope that was about the International Institute, which we just announced is going to be coming out and being live. Dave, would you like to come on and talk just a little bit about maybe some of what's going to be addressed in these topics? I mean, I know that we're going to be talking about some various systems, like we'll be going into China. We'll be talking about English-based systems in West Africa. I know that there is information included about India, as well as the Bologna process in Europe. We're going to be talking about various parts of these, but Dave, what would you expect to find? What would you expect someone will be able to learn those outcomes from here?
Well, Drew, you covered the basic bullet points. We're going to, each country will be covered in terms of the outline of the educational system. We'll be talking about, just a brief overview of history and development of education, and focusing mostly on what people are going to be seeing now, maybe some credentials that, are being phased out, but they'll still see in the admissions offices. So it's going to be basically the principles of international credential evaluation in general, and as they are applied to credentials from each of the countries. So obviously with Venezuela and Ukraine, we're going to be talking about situation of education and crisis. And I see a good reminder from Mike Sisson. Yes, this will be in DC this year. And so anyone who sees credentials from any of these countries would find something of value in the Institute. And we have various faculty members who will be there guiding us through the whole thing. So these are always very well regarded and well attended sessions, and you can start to get your ducks in a row to attend these right now, if you're so disposed.
The other thing that I would that I mentioned just a second ago and encourage you to come on the next slide is another in-person learning opportunity, that ACRO annual meeting. As I mentioned, it's in Aurora, Colorado. It's right at the beginning of spring. I'm sure it's going to be beautiful there. Anyone that's in Colorado today, it might not be as beautiful today, but it will be beautiful March 26th through 29th. I don't control the weather, but I'm putting us down for some good one. But really, I'm going to let all of you look at this offline. There's so many different exciting plenary sessions. There's so many different exciting speakers that are coming, but we've included just a couple of the things that would be international, that would be specific to you. Some educational systems of Central America. We're going to be doing international credential evaluation. And then there's partnerships with Africa was one that I remember as well. We've got many of them. But basically, go ahead and sign up for the ACRO annual meeting, and you'll be able to search through. There's a searchable agenda that'll have all of your sessions that are available. You'll be able to go through and look at all of that. On the next page, we're actually going to be talking about a little bit more of relationship that TISEP has with providing lots of good information connecting out. Emily, you want to talk about one of the things that TISEP offers?
Sure, thanks, Drew. So in many of the past Edge User Group webinars, there have been questions about resources on the issuing of digital academic records, online verification services, and the like. And we spoke about the hub briefly in the past. And unfortunately, there's no preview mechanism. It's only available to TISEP members. You can see the link on the screen. But because of TISEP and ACRO IESC's close relationship, we're able to preview this resource here and show you around some of the navigation features. So for those of you who don't have access to this yet, you can see what it's like. What's nice is that you can search by region or by provider in this database. On to the next slide. So what does this database cover? So third-party issuers of electronic academic records. So if you think about Parchment, National Student Clearinghouse, et cetera, but on a global scale, of course. Governmental or ministerial registries, that may keep their own depository of records. For example, like CHESIC, which is now CSSD, they're under the ministry and do keep a database of records, I think, since 2002, or at least that was said at last week's webinar. The hub also covers websites that provide immediate authentication of a credential and a verification portal. So those hosted by exam boards or ministries again. So WIAC is one good example. If you have the West African Senior Secondary Certificate or Secondary School Certificate for Liberia, Ghana, Nigeria, the Gambia, Sierra Leone. If you have the scratch card or the PIN code, you can go into the website and verify the results immediately. So those kinds of verification portals are also listed in the hub. Also, independent third-party verification services. A lot of times there are places where it's just hard to contact or reach. There are no automatic verification portals, so you might want to just use verification services, especially those that might specialize in a particular country or educational system. So their information can also be found in this database. And then the last category is what we refer to as document procurement and verification services. This category is probably something that's we're not used to. For those of us who are Americans, may not be used to this kind of entity, but you can find them in places like India, Malaysia, Middle East. So what happens is when we think of the issue of electronic records, that provider is contracted by an educational body, right? So again, your Parchment, National Student Clearinghouse, Digitary, and whatnot. But you have something on the flip side where it's the student that engages with the document procurement and verification service. And then what that entity does is it will take the records of that student, contact the educational authorities directly, verify them, and then offer them up in sort of like a Docs wallet, and then forward them to whomever, an employer, your educational institution, if they're applying for admission and whatnot, and say, hey, these documents have been authenticated. They're in electronic format. Here they are for your use as they've been authorized for release by the student. So because they do this a lot, they do eventually develop relationships with the educational institutions and whatnot, but the relationship and the arrangement really is initiated by the student. So you want to be aware of that relationship. That's very different from the direct third-party issuers that are outsourced directly by the educational institution. So these is the range of providers that are covered. What's not covered essentially are individual universities, because many universities also have their own portals, if you will, verification portals. So those are not included here. Okay, on to the next slide. So just to give you an idea of how it works, when you log in, there's a map and it's interactive. So you can click on the map on the specific region you're interested in, or you can just use the menu on the left. If you use the map and you are hovering over a particular country, it will then give you a preview of the providers that are shown for that country. So in this particular case, we have Canada. So of course, it's going to include MyCreds. It's going to include Our Data, which is a verification service that specializes in Canadian credentials. And then MyPass and BC Transcripts, which are specific to a province at the secondary level. So you can see sort of a preview card if you're hovering over a particular country. On to the next slide, please. So when you're looking at the map specifically, you'll see these little pins. And what should be brought to your attention is that they are color coded, blue versus green. So blue means that it's a national provider and is focused or restricted to that country. And if it's green, then it means that it is a regional or global provider. So in this particular example we have showing here, we have the Caribbean Examinations Council. So of course it's not restricted to one country, but serves multiple ones. So that's the difference between the blue and the green pin. Next slide. If you use the navigation bar on the left instead and click on verifiers/providers, then you will get to the list of what's in the database. And you can easily do a search by provider or simply by region, which is nice. So you don't, if you're struggling with the map and trying to get it to be accurate, you can just go straight to the list here. Next slide. So for example, if you click on Botswana Examinations Council, this is what will pull up. It will show that it focuses on secondary and primary credentials, and that in terms of its service, it's an online verification portal. It provides the link, and it will show right now it is a red X, meaning the link is not working. You know, as you can imagine, a lot of times it's either not working or it's unstable. So it will show you that unfortunately it's not working now, but it may work again sometime later. But that is the information that will show. Now in Grad Intelligence, this information reveals that it focuses instead on post-secondary credentials in the United Kingdom, and it's not a verification portal. Instead, it is an actual issuer of digital credentials. And luckily, their link is working because you see a green button, a green check mark instead, so you know that it's working. I also want to draw your attention to the comments box that they have for each provider. It's, you know, one of the things we know about this field is we really rely on information and resources that we all share with each other. And so the comments is important because it's important to note that whatever's listed in the hub does not mean that it is an endorsement by TISEP. It is informational, purely informational, and it is for you to go to your institutional policies to determine, okay, is this a provider that we want to use or accept or recognize or what have you. So what's nice is their comments, because you can go in and say, you know what, they've been very efficient, very helpful, or there have been some weird instances that perhaps you know, others should be aware of, and that's the beauty that can be shared. When the comments are typed in, they first go to the administrator who approves them, and then it's released out into the public in terms of the hub. So it is really important to make use of that feature or to look out for the comments feature. On to the next slide. So this is just the last slide about the hub. So it was just launched actually in the fall of 2021 during lovely COVID. So there are still new features being worked on and developed. For example, how to flag bad actors, you know, providers that, you know, may be a bit suspect. Also fake verification portals, since we include I guess, real verification portals. There are also fake ones out there, which is problematic. So we're trying to figure out a way to flag those as well, and have a preview feature. We don't have that, as I said. You have to be a member to access it, or attend this EDGE user group so that you can see these kinds of features. But the takeaway is to do, if you do have access, make use of the comments feature in the hub, or contact the Digital Student Data Task Force that manages this resource if you want to, for example, recommend somebody or another provider, or just bring something to their attention, or if you have questions. So that's it for the TISEP Digital Credentials Provider Hub.
Then I believe Dave Mahali is going to jump on and chat about a couple of his colleagues that I know he knows personally. I've met Gloria. I had the opportunity to go out to her abode out in Northridge once. She was a very gracious host. Saw Johnny out there as well. We had a lot of EDGE discussions. Gloria, she's a former chair of the IESC. Dave, what else did she do? But you'll have to unmute yourself if I'm going to hear everything else that was happening.
I pressed it once. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to take a little time to talk about Gloria and Johnny, two people who really are among those who are responsible for us being here with you today, and who were very important to the development of EDGE, and were there at its inception, and who were also just inducted into the TISEP Hall of Acclaim this year. As Drew mentioned previously, that's not up on the website yet for TISEP, but it will be soon. Incidentally, our colleague Julia Funaki, who is somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean right now and couldn't be with us today, took point on the nomination effort for Gloria and Johnny. So when I started down this road 35 years ago, these two people were amongst the influential doers and mentors, and it's really a testament to their influence and the abilities that they have that you're still hearing about them. You really can't get a feel for the resource they represent to us all from the information on the slide. So here goes. I'll start with Johnny Johnson. Johnny had a long and varied career in international education, admissions and foreign education credential evaluation, and his career continues to this day because he is a voting member on the International Education Standards Committee, the IESC of ACRO, that was formed in the vacuum caused by disbanding the National Council on the Evaluation of Foreign Educational Credentials. That was the outfit that approved all the placement recommendations in the books and workshop reports that some of you may remember. And that was made up of 7 different organizations, including ACRO and NAFSA and the College Board and the Council of Graduate Schools and American Council on Education and a few others. That group oversaw all the placement recommendations for the ACRO publications and the ACRO-NAFSA joint publications, such as the JCOW and later the peer workshop reports. If you haven't heard of JCOW, it's probably because you're less than 60 years old. It was an early collaborative effort between ACRO and NAFSA, and led later to the peer workshop reports, which, some of which are still pretty current. Johnny started out at the University of Kentucky. And he was responsible for many of the overviews and the country profiles that you see in EDGE. After Kentucky, he moved around. He went to Malaysia, worked in Aruba, and then he spent the majority of his career at Monterey Peninsula College, where he was instrumental, along with our good friend Ed Devlin, who's no longer with us. They were instrumental in pioneering admission of foreign students to community colleges in the United States first, for students who wouldn't always have been admittable to four-year institutions, and that allowed these students to develop the skills and get a transfer base of credit that would allow them to transfer to universities. Johnny was the chair of ADSEC, which was the admissions section of NAFSA back in the days when about a quarter of NAFSA members were involved in admissions, which is not the case today, and was very involved in international education on the evaluation and the admissions end of things. He was vice president of international education at ACRO, as was Gloria Nathanson, who we're going to talk about next. And he was instrumental in publication of the first edition of the Graduate Handbook, which NAFSA published and had its origins back in, to the 1960s. And it served as kind of the Bible for international admissions at colleges and universities in the US for many years as the field was developing. In addition to all these things, Johnny is just an all-around good guy who brings a sense of humor and encyclopedic knowledge of the way things were and are and perhaps will be to anything that we talk about when the council meets. So that's our hero number one. And of course, Johnny was involved on the ground floor of EDGE, and I'll explain a little bit more what that means as I move on to Gloria. Gloria Nathanson is the namesake and the inspiration behind the Gloria R. Nathanson Research Fund for International Education. And any of you listening today are welcome to apply for that for a research grant. We'll maybe cover that in one of the later slides. And she was also inducted into the Hall of Fame for TISEP this year. Gloria incidentally had the audacity to retire at age 90 after spending 30 years at UCLA in both international and undergraduate admissions in both of those offices. After she had raised a family, she came to UCLA and tore up the track. And she was a real force in the University of California system for over 3 decades. She was also vice president for international education at ACRO, and she served as an ACRO committee chair on various committees, driving the planning and running of the annual meeting, and also serving in the publications department for many years. I can tell you, as Drew mentioned, she's a very gracious host. I was at her house in, I think, 2005 or 6 for one of the first EDGE planning meetings. And imagine having, a group of people in your house for 3 days just before the holidays. It was really something. So that meeting was where the standardized language that makes up all the country profiles in EDGE was hammered out. And along with Bill Paver and Dale Goff and Robert Watkins, who couldn't be here today, and Johnny, Gloria was part of that core EDGE team, and they moved mountains in order to get the support from ACRO and, to line up all the authors and the support staff and get the programmers involved who got EDGE off the ground. And a great deal of that early heavy lifting was done by Gloria in her inimitable style, which is characterized by a very sharp focus on the task and keeping things moving and not letting the discussion devolve into various fiefdom and tangential concerns. I hope it's been interesting to hear about these people. What I want to convey is that these people are still involved, and we're lucky to have them. And spoiler alert, some of the people on the panel, some of the people in the audience attending today either are currently heroes or will be heroes to the upcoming generation of credential analysts. So keep your involvement and strive to live by the example set by Gloria and Johnny. And that does it for me, Drew. Thank you.
Hey, Dave, thank you. I really appreciate you having those kind words to say about Johnny and Gloria. They really have added a lot to the field, and they are both remarkable human beings. As Dave alluded to, we do have on the next slide a grant that is named in honor of Gloria, and it is to try to promote further research in the field for profiles within EDGE when you're doing a deep dive into specific issues that are important when understanding a specific education system. White papers, we have white papers that will go in depth and talk about things. Our IESC fellows, they're folks that are early on in their careers in international education within the first 5 years of evaluating. And they actually get to work on projects that are pushed all the way through, learning some of those best practices on how to do research. Some of you guys know those practices. You go all the way in, find what you need to, and you've got the documents assembled. I know some of you do on your drive somewhere, like buried somewhere. You have that document that you go reference all the time. That's the kind of thing that would be really useful to put out for everyone to use. And we want to help encourage you to do that with a little bit of financial assistance to defray some of those costs. But I think now we'll answer any questions that we had going on. Christina, you wanna take us away with any of the questions that we have?
Absolutely. Thank you, Drew. I want to start with Tracy, who's had her hand up for a little while now. Thanks for your patience. Sometimes people put their hands up by mistake, but if it wasn't a mistake, please go ahead and come off mute. We're happy to answer any other questions that you might have. And while we're waiting for Tracy to hop on, I also want to point you guys back to the chat. Ying Shao had asked a question in the chat. Does TISEP membership automatically have access to digital docs hubs, or is it a different subscription? And thank you, Anna. She answered in chat, yes. So if you have TISEP membership, then you automatically have access to that digital docs hub. I also wanted to point you guys to Mike's comment, which is a little bit up if you guys scroll back. He posted the link for the 2023 user groups, and I'll just go ahead and repost that here if I can. Maybe I can't. It's up there. Oh, there we go. Alrighty. And I'll also make a point of answering, or at least reading aloud, some of the Q&A questions that were already answered. Holly Streeter had asked, when I use the WES degree equivalency tool, Bangladesh is not listed in the country of education dropdown. Do you know why that might be? And Jasmine had just commented, thank you, Jasmine, that the question is best addressed by the staff at WES themselves. Callie had asked, do you accept completion of grade 11 in Quebec, Canada to your undergraduate study, or do you want the graduate certificate 12-year? And I'm gonna pawn this question to Jasmine.
Thank you, Christina. I saw that and I was saying, I want to answer that. I have a personal connection to Quebec, and this question is regarding the secondary system in Quebec, Canada. I was part of the peer research project that did the publication on Canada several years ago, but things really haven't changed that much when it comes to the education system in the province of Quebec. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the Quebec education system, it's a little bit unique. It differs from the other provinces of Canada, and that is that it has an 11-year secondary system. At the end of the 11th year, students receive the Diplôme d'études secondaires, which is the diploma of secondary education. That diploma on its own does not provide access to university programs, meaning it does not give direct access to the first year of an undergraduate bachelor program in the province of Quebec or the other Canadian provinces. And the reason for that is that in order to be admitted to university in the province, in Quebec, students have to complete a 2-year program on the average at a college that is classified as, in French, it's the acronym is CEGEP, C-E-G-E-P, which stands for, in the English translation, Colleges of Professional and Academic Studies. These 2-year program is kind of a bridge between this 11-year system and the university system. Typically, once the students finish the 2-year, they receive a diplôme d'études collégiales, which is a diploma of collegial studies. This gives them access to the first year of undergraduate programs at the universities in Canada, including Quebec, for the purpose of comparability to the US system and evaluation. We will look at the Diplôme d'études secondaires awarded after 11 years of study as comparable to completion of grade 11. The students must have these 2 years or at least 1 year of full time at a CEGEP, at these specialized colleges of vocational and academic studies, in order to be considered to have comparability to US senior high school graduation. And again, the logic there is that on its own, the DES does not give direct access to the first year of undergraduate. Students have to do at least 1 to 2 years full time. For our purpose here in the United States, for the purpose of Canadian institutions, a minimum 2-year program leading to the Diplôme d'études collégiales is required. So to answer the question is that, but on its own, the 11-year system, the 11-year diploma from the Quebec system will not meet high school graduation requirements. I hope that it was lengthy, but I hope that explains it, because we see that a lot and we always have to give this sort of long-winded explanation to the applicants or to college admissions.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, Jasmine. You were trying to understand the way that credential works in the native
Correct.
education system that it's coming out of. You're understanding what that gives access to. That's one of the things that that we really set up in EDGE when we provide that entry requirement. That is the bare minimum to get in there, and that's what you're looking at. You're looking at what gives access to these next programs, and if you couldn't use that credential to get into post-secondary work in where you did all of the study, does it make sense for that to be able to be applied elsewhere to gain that kind of access? It's those kinds of philosophical questions and ways of addressing this that the IESC dives deep to find what we think of as the correct answer. We debate it out amongst all of ourselves, and we'll hear arguments from all sides and try to synthesize all of that, because we have experts from both sides of the country, the top and the bottom, with decades of experience, and we figure out that advice to try to provide that over for you. And one thing that Jasmine did mention, she talked about 2-year programs or 1-year programs. When we're talking about this advice in EDGE, we're always assuming a full-time enrollment. So when we say a 3-year program, we're talking 3 years full-time full-time enrollment. If someone completes a 4-year program in 3.5 years, they still did the 4-year program. We're talking about credits, and we're talking about the work that they've actually put in. We've had some questions to clarify on that, and that's just how we do it standard across the board within EDGE.
Awesome. Thank you both for your input. And Belma, if you just want to go to the next slide real quick, we're just within 2 minutes of closing out. Awesome. So these are some QR codes that you guys can use to join the conversation and continue what we discuss in our EDGE user groups, as well as what we have in our database. The International Activities Listserv is a great resource that you guys can use to ask colleagues within the same field. So people who, for example, would be at our webinar today, questions, and for their perspective. You can also subscribe to our Connect newsletter, as well as request an EDGE subscription using that first QR code. And last slide, Belma. Awesome. And this is just a list of all of our QR codes that were referenced today. And one final Q&A thing that I wanted to address is, nobody asked this, but we get this question a lot, going back to the EDGE managers. So for those of you who do act as EDGE managers for your subscription, you'll notice that within the 30-day period leading up to your renewal date, so for example, if you're due to renew on January 1st of 2023, your 30-day would start on December 1st, you'll notice that your ability to actually manage the subscription disappears for those days. So if you need edits made or you have any questions, you can always reach out to us directly by email. But just in the event that you're confused about not being able to see it, that is why. But without further ado, we're right at the top of the hour, so I want to respect everyone's time. Thank you so much to our panelists. who are here today. And thank you guys for attending. I'm wishing you a fantastic holiday, and we will see you guys at the next Edge User Group. Take care,
Thank you all for
Thank you.
attending. Thank you, Jasmine. And Christina, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Happy
Christina.
holidays. Take care.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye.